I shall now proceed to answer the first 30 questions asked in the Ask Me Anything session 2017. This question is from Manish in India, and his question is, how does one live in a higher state of ascended consciousness in a lower dimensional world and maintain healthy relationships when nobody else around seems to understand or know what you know? The loneliness is excruciatingly painful. As a leader, what do I do? I've been more or less isolated for a major part of 6 years. And my response to that is, it is generally true that the higher you go up the mountain, the more lonely it gets. Okay? You even see this in real physical life. Okay? You climb a mountain, and the higher you go, the more people have given up and already returned. However, there's something to be said about reaching high states of consciousness and then going back into the world and relating to people and being social with people and having relationships with people. Because it's not really what you know, it's relationships to people is about exchanging energy and love and care and appreciation. It has nothing to do with knowledge. And yes, you can enjoy relationships with so-called normal people. If you make too much of a separation between yourself and other people, you're not enlightened, you're an elitist. And that's one of the tendencies of people who have trained a long time and, develop really high qualities. They tend to become elitist and look down on so-called normal people. But so-called normal people, too, have the same essence and energy and consciousness that you have. Even though it may be latent, it may not be developed. So reaching a high state is one thing, but I always say it's easy to reach a high state in isolation. How about reaching that high state in normal daily life? And that's my journey, being just a normal and simple person who goes about normal and simple things with normal and simple people, and still maintaining a fairly stable and good state of energy and consciousness in spite of all the negativity around me. Okay? And as you make peace with so-called normal people and see their true essence and are more concerned about caring and helping and loving, and also being open to the fact that you can learn from them. You're of the false idea that you have nothing to learn from them, which is completely untrue. Okay? As you open yourself up to the idea that these so-called normal people are of interest and have something to teach you, you begin to grow even more and learn even more. Then you're in the world, but not of the world. Okay? So reaching a high state of consciousness is one thing. Reaching it after going back down from the mountain back into the world and maintaining it there is another thing. It's the next level. Very obviously, it's your next level. The next question is from Hamad Al-Khalaf from Kuwait, and it says, "Hello, Frederick Dodson. Are the Annunaki the guardians of the human race, both in physical and non-physical planes?" Well, that's interesting that a success coach gets to answer questions on aliens. I think that's pretty unique. So by Annunaki, you probably mean ancient aliens. And my personal view on that is that no, they're not guardians of the physical or the non-physical universe. There's extraterrestrials or aliens that are simply from elsewhere, from other planets, and that does not make them guardians of anything. I think the actual guardians of the physical and the non-physical universe are non-physical. They're not extraterrestrial beings, they're non-physical beings, probably closer to what we might call angels. But take this with a grain of salt. That's just my view based on my research. The next question is from Liz in Romania. And it's, from your experience, do you think it's necessary to dissolve the old state patterns through techniques before you enter the new reality, or will the new state reality erase them on its own if totally claimed? Well, that's a common question, and my simplified response to that is it's enough to claim the new reality unless the old reality keeps forcing itself upon you, by which there's some emotional clearing and processing to do on the old reality. Another way to say this is learn to shift your attention to what you prefer, learn to shift your focus to what you like, and that'll usually be enough. Putting your focus on the negative is only then necessary when the negative keeps coming in spite of your shifting of focus to the positive. That means there's something in your subconscious that's not addressed properly, that wants addressing, because you created it so strongly previously, and you also created that it would stay throughout time because it was so important to you, and you fed it with so much attention. So the issue might be this big, and you're focusing on something new might be this big. Okay, so one thing you could do is give that more attention, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger the more attention and importance you give it, until it eventually overpowers the old thing. Or you could actually go ahead and address, handle, or dissolve the old thing, by which focusing on the new thing is easier. So the answer to this question depends upon how charged or big the old thing is, and also how strong your power is to maintain or stay with the new thing. Oftentimes, going with the new thing will automatically bring up whatever's against it, okay? And it can be processed on the way to the goal, on the way to the new thing. So you set a new goal, and whatever stands against it, it's just naturally going to come up. You don't necessarily have to look for stuff to release or decreate or overcome or get rid of. It's going to come up by itself through following a good goal. The next question is from Branko. I do not know where he's from. It's, on a road to success, we are presented with a lot of opportunities, but some of them, or many of them, are just fraudsters, trying to get their hands on our money, and sometimes we fall for these schemes that disrupt our progress. How do we tell a real opportunity from a fake one for sure? Well, my, again, oversimplified answer to that is that it's a mix of intuition, experience, and research. Today you have Google or other search engines to do some research. Okay? and then you have experience, and through much trial and error, as you age, you can tell one from the other. Moreover, if you become more familiar with marketing, you'll realize that a lot of things out there have more marketing than substance. Okay, that's one of the things that has always bothered me as a self-improvement coach, that there was a lot of fanfare and a lot of marketing and a lot of using of fairy dust, but very little substance behind all of that marketing. That's why in my own work I've reduced marketing to an absolute minimum and aimed to increase substance. All right? So, research, intuition, experience. You can never tell for sure because some people are very adept at marketing, but you can have 99% accuracy if your intuition is intact and you're not deceived by fairy dust. That means you're not into glamour and you're not driven by strong desires or strong fears. When you're driven by strong desires or strong fears, intuition doesn't work and you can't really tell because you're blinded through desire. You see, or you're blinded through fear. And if you're in a state of desperation, any marketer or salesman can sell you anything. So it's more of a matter of becoming confident within so that you're not driven by fear or desire, and you can look things in a fairly calm or rational manner. The next question is by Nidal. It's, "Hi Frederick, are we living in a matrix? And how can we exit it?" From a certain level of consciousness, it would appear that you're living in a sort of prison or on sort of a slave planet, and you can find evidence for that, and that idea is appealing because then it's like a game where you have to figure out how to escape it. So that can be an appealing way to live. But at a higher level of consciousness, you can drop beliefs like that. You can label them as paranoid and simply see life as a fun game or as a school or as a training that was made out of love rather out of trying to oppress you. Okay, so one consciousness level, it's the fear level that most people live on. It's a paranoid level that sees opposition and opponents everywhere and sees imprisonment and enslavement. And that's an exciting thing, but it's not really the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is that this experience of life on earth was made out of love, and there's a lot of challenges involved for you to grow. Okay, Earth is a mix of pain and pleasure, good and bad, and that's the fun part, to get to choose and find out what is good for me, what is not good for me. The next question comes from Dubai, and it's, "I just wanted to ask about knowing the purpose of your life. I tried your meditations, but it still seems not clear." My answer to that is the reason it's not clear is because the purpose of your life is revealed to you over time as you follow the things that you like, follow the things that you're talented and already good at by nature. There's a reason you're good at them. And follow the things that are outside of your comfort zone, that challenge you, that you're a little bit afraid of, maybe. So it's a mixture of going outside your comfort zone, following what you like, and following what you're good at. And as you keep following that path, it is revealed to you what your purpose is. And it becomes clear eventually, once you've tried several things, it becomes more and more clear what is really for you, what you're about, what you're good at, what helps you grow. And your particular purpose may change from time to time through each life phase. So it's not like there's only one purpose to life. And in addition to that, by just living, you're actually already fulfilling the most important purpose, which is to actually go through this earth experience, which is quite amazing, to say the least. Quite astonishing. So you've already fulfilled the most important purpose. You can now find out what your particular talent here is, what your particular contribution is, the things that only you see in a certain way, that only you can give. The things, it's usually connected to things you see lacking around you. You know, back in the day, I always saw a lack of substance within the self-improvement industry. So I realized that was my contribution. That was my passion, my purpose, to bring a deeper substance into it, rather than compartmentalizing things, you know, rather than relying solely on marketing and money making. I wanted to find something that is of true and lasting value just by reading it. The next question is from Jordan, and it is, why would someone be stuck in a good student or good kid identity, although they've passed that stage a long time ago, and how to assume a more mature, independent identity? And I'm assuming you got this idea from my book, Being Higher Self, and that book at the same time answers that question. So why don't you reread the chapter that addresses just that? Why would somebody assume that? Because they think that by being perfect and good all the time, they please their parents as children. And as we carry that over into adulthood, we think we have to please everyone all the time and look good all the time. And trying to be perfect and making no mistakes all the time makes us rather stiff and inauthentic. So how can you practice being more mature? Well, obviously, by allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to make mistakes, allowing yourself not always to look good, not always to look perfect, and that gives you a great sense of calm, okay? I don't insist that these videos I make for you, for example, are perfect. There might be something off with the lighting, or I might not be in my highest state, or I might not answer the questions as accurately as I can, but I'm tolerant. I give myself space not to be perfect, and that makes me very calm. And paradoxically, by being very calm, I feel more confident. And by being more confident, in some mysterious way, that which I put out is good. Whereas if I always try to hide mistakes, guess what's going to happen? I'm always going to make mistakes. And because of that, I can essentially do these videos without any preparation whatsoever, and without having to repeat another take and do another take. This is just spontaneous off the top of my head. And that comes from a state of calm and allowing yourself not to be perfect. I want to be good. I want to be focused, but not over-focused. I want to be ambitious, but not over-ambitious. I want to make a good impression, but I don't have to. Okay? There's no such thing as a perfect human being. There's no such thing as a hero. We're just humans. The next question is from Manuel in Spain. And it's, what is the best way to act and react to old circumstances, objects, events, when identifying with a new identity or reality? Sometimes I find it hard to release attention from old circumstances. Is it a good idea to make a list of old circumstances and assign a default reaction from the new viewpoint? And my answer to that is yes, that's a very good idea. It takes some practice, okay? I teach in my book Parallel Universes of Self that not only do you focus on a new reality, you also react differently to the old reality. And in order to react differently to the old reality, you might want to become aware of how to react to the old reality. And by listing that, and deliberately practicing that, you get better at it. It is difficult to react in a new way to an old reality if you're not aware of how you could react. You can list it or imagine it, and then every time that old situation comes back up, you can practice your new reaction to it. Every time the problem comes up, you can practice your new approach toward it. There's 100 positive ways you could react and 100 negative ways you could react. And the idea is becoming aware of these new ways of approaching things and remembering them when the bad thing happens instead of being automatically triggered every time. Okay? And even if you are automatically triggered with the old reaction, there's still a new way to respond to the old trigger even, okay? This question is from Safa in Tunis, and it's how to improve my eyesight. What is the best reality creation technique for that? What I did is I simply had my eyes lasered. Okay, it's not necessarily true what all these law of attraction people say, that you have to do it through your mental powers. It's that if you identify with a certain goal and have a certain goal, it doesn't really matter which method you use for it. What matters is that the method works. I say, be inflexible with the goal, be flexible with the method. Whether you do it by mental powers or often the easier way through eye surgery doesn't really matter. What matters is that your goal is achieved. So if you identify with that reality and have it as a firm goal, that's what I want to see clearly, then something might come up that allows you to afford eye surgery, okay? Or something else might come up. You might get a booklet on eye training, for example, or stop staring into that little smartphone all the time. Eyesight responds to your emotional state often, and also to your habitual way of focusing. So many people are too rigidly focused, and they don't even notice it. They stare all the time, you know, everything they look at they stare, and they would have to relax those eye muscles intentionally and find new ways of focusing or opening their focus, or ways of looking into the distance, looking close, looking from the side of the eyes, peripherally, and so forth. So bad eyesight comes from many years of bad looking habits, tense looking habits. So once you have your eye surgery, or once you do your eye training, or once you visualize better eyesight. 3 different things you can do. You could still look at what actually caused the bad eyesight. Did you have many years of a bad habit, a bad looking habit, where you looked in the same way all the time? You know, if you look into your phone a lot, it's looking in the same way all the time. And you might want to look and then look into the distance, and then look some more at your phone, and then look into your distance. Look into the distance. So you have to find out what those habits are and correct them. Because you might get eye surgery, for example, and then sooner or later, if you maintain those habits, you'll just fall right back into the old thing. The next question comes anonymously, and it's based on my book, Parallel Universes of Self. The question is, will I carry all the information and insights I got in my current timeline to a new timeline if I use the pure technique? And the answer is yes, you will, of course. However, depending on how you focus, certain memories from your old identity or old self have less importance, less relevance. Okay, and when these memories have less importance, you might tend to forget them. And that's actually desirable. The next question comes from Oliver, who I assume is in Germany. And it's a question from a Christian perspective, saying, I grew up in a church that is charismatic, and I'm still there because of my mom. I learned how to speak in tongues. I was taught that you only have 2 options, heaven and hell. So you have to be a born-again Christian to get to heaven, which I don't believe anymore, thanks to you. The preaching is a mix of fear-based thinking, but still somehow trying to motivate people to move forward. My general question is, are these charismatic churches operating from a high energy level? Because healing and miracles do take place even in my life. And my answer to that is that healings and miracles do take place in those churches because many people congregate in the belief that they do. And they sing and almost chant to the point of increasing their belief power and their word power. So yes, miracles do take place there. If you can take that with you and disregard the fear programming of hell, the focus on hell, which is a misguided focus, then it's fine. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. So enjoy the good sides. It's a fact that any organization that I join on Earth will have a shadow side, a dark side, and an upside. Almost everything has a downside and an upside. And you can acknowledge the downside, be aware of it, and enjoy the upside. Okay, I could join a golf club, and there's going to be a downside to that and an upside. The next question is from Dariusz, or Darek, from Poland. And it's, how can I know experientially that I'm an internal and all-powerful being? I still have trouble really believing it, even that I know all the theory. Well, before going to all-powerful being, why don't you just aim for exploring the powers that you do have, okay? Why don't you aim for using your imagination and seeing what effect that might have on what happens in your daily life. So you explore the powers you do have instead of the powers you feel you don't have. See what the limits of your power are, and you can slowly seek to expand your domain and expand those limits. Because within certain identities that we have, we are not all powerful. And that's not what I teach either. I teach that consciousness and the universe, your essence, the aspect of you which is connected to infinity is very, very powerful, but not your identities. So within a human body and human identity, you have certain powers and others you don't have because you're operating within a domain, within a context. So I'd explore the powers you do have by using your attention and your imagination to the best of your ability. It's like try achieving that first before looking further. Achieve the simple things first, so that your normal life is totally taken care of. Finances taken care of, relationships taken care of, career taken care of, health taken care of. And then from there, you can expand further and see what else is possible. And yes, much more is possible. So the guiding question might be, what else is possible? Is even more possible? The next question is from Ben in Hungary. It's actually 2 questions, but I'm only going to answer one. Those were the rules. So it's just how powerful can retro reality creation be in your experience? Changing the now by creating your memory of an event. Can it even change other people's memories in your surroundings? And I'd say that at the first level, it's powerful enough to change your state in the now. And it's powerful enough to change other people's perception of you. Okay? And in my experience, at the next level, at the advanced level, it's powerful enough to have people forget whatever happened. And some people in public life are very adept at that. Taking, politicians as an example. Politicians know that the attention span of people is not that high. And if they simply reinvent their identity, people are going to perceive them differently. So I know of a couple of politicians who've really failed big time, and then they managed to reinvent themselves and change their identity and are now incredibly popular. They've even changed the perception of the populace. The same goes for some celebrities and actors who have failed big time or been involved in huge scandals and who managed to get out of it. Some don't manage to get out of it and they're brand marked for the rest of their lives, but some do. So that answers your question whether it's possible to change other people's memories and perceptions of you by changing your identity and who you are and as who you feel. Shockingly, it is possible, yes. So this is a question that comes from Saudi Arabia, and I have a kind of sadness about where I belong, because when I come back to my country, I feel like I want to go back to the UK. It feels lifeless in my own country, but all my family and my relatives and even my work and my home and everything is here in my country and not there. And I have to like my own country, not another. Well, I don't know if you have to like your own country. I'm of the opinion that if you don't like your own country, you can go to another country where you feel better, that you like more. Okay? but apparently you do like your family and you do like your work, so you might want to focus on that more and emphasize that as long as you stay in your old country, with the maybe future goal or future intention to one day live in that other country, or to retire there, or to build a family in that country, to build your own family. So in general, it's wise to enjoy the here and now as best you can, the circumstances as best you can, without saying that you're forced to be in these circumstances, and that maybe someday, maybe one day, you can build a family in that country that you like. Because otherwise you'll just be taking the resistances you have about your current country over to the new country. And in the new country, you might not find the same problems and issues, but you'll find other ones, because every country has upsides and downsides. You see, I just spent 1.5 months in New York, and that place too has upsides and downsides, just like any other place. The upside is that it's quick and energetic and full of money and full of options and opportunity and people and energy. And the downside is that it's incredibly noisy and pushy, and everybody's short on time. Everybody's into make it quick and convenience. So absolutely every place has upsides and downsides. More important is what you feel within, who you are, and not where you are. Now, I confess there's some places that are better than others, okay? But that's not the main point. Where you are is not the main point. It's who you are. The next question is from Pontus in Sweden, and it's, I would love to hear your perspective on diet and healthy eating. My perspective on diet and healthy eating is that you can inform yourself about what diet coaches and health coaches say, about what they say, but more important is to start feeling what is good for you and your particular body. Okay, there's a lot of information out there, much of it contradictory, and all that information wouldn't be necessary. That billion-dollar diet book industry and weight loss industry wouldn't be necessary if people would feel more and be more conscious of how they feel before eating, during eating, and after eating. By being more aware of your body feeling before, during, and after, you become aware of many things. You become aware of the fact that you don't need as much food as you thought you did. You become aware of the difference between emotional eating to fill an emptiness that should have been filled differently with self-love, for example, versus hunger eating, genuine eating from hunger. You become aware of what size of portion really fills you up. Normally we eat, and then even though we're full, instead of just feeling that, we keep on eating out of habit. Okay, so in my view, it's important to become aware also of the effects that certain foods have on you, rather than taking the recommendations of another. You know, you should be aware of them, but not take them as gospel, because your body is unique, your body is different from others. This next question is from Hamsa, and it's, I want to ask you how to open the heart chakra for love while the fear emotion of people is stabbing me from behind and taking advantage of my kindness. Well, if people are backstabbing and taking advantage of your kindness, I'd say, and this might sound strange to you at first, but I think someday you'll get it, that it's not genuine kindness and genuine love. It's more likely a giving of kindness out of fear and out of trying to please others. In which case you should reduce that kind of so-called kindness and set more borders and say no more often, and set consequences if those borders are overstepped. You should not allow people to use you as a doormat, okay? And as you give yourself this self-love, that's love toward yourself, you'll be more able to give others genuine love. What is often lacking in so-called kind people is the kindness toward oneself. And kindness does not only entail kindness toward others, it especially entails kindness toward self, self-respect, and setting borders, what is and is not allowed for people to do with you. Okay? And in that kind of energy you develop because you respect yourself, you also develop the capacity to share that energy and share genuine love toward others and genuine compassion. And something you can do in general is look at the person right now who's stabbed you in the back. Think of that person and think of how that person must be hurting and must be suffering to hurt you in that way. Can you see that person's weakness? Usually, if you see such person's weaknesses, you'll develop more compassion, and I think that's what you mean by heart chakra. But this has to go along with setting your own borders and not allowing that anymore and saying, well, if you do that again, then this and this is the consequence. You know, I'm not going to give any attention to that. In fact, I'm going to leave this room right now and goodbye. So you have to respect yourself enough to not allow that to happen too often. People who treat you poorly, they don't deserve being rewarded for it with your attention. That's not love, okay? That's self-disrespect if you still reward that kind of behavior. This question comes from Theo in the Netherlands. And it's, how can I make a habit of becoming or being a higher version of myself? And one of his own answers is, act as if I'm the higher version of myself who already has the habit of becoming the higher version of himself. What would your answers be, Fred? Well, how can you make it a habit of being the higher version of yourself? The way I do it is that if something does not work out properly, I try to redo it properly. So suppose this video does not turn out properly, I'll just redo it properly, okay? But because I'm calm and my higher version right now, I'm not going to have to redo it. But in the case that I were tense or confused, I would simply redo it in a better way. If the trip was not what I wanted, I'll do it one day again in a better version, in a higher version. If the conversation was not as it could have been, I'll do it again with the intention to do better. and so forth. So everything that happens in daily life can always be redone in the next better version. And as you follow this practice throughout life, you're going to become gradually and incrementally better in every single thing you do and are. The next question is from Arman in Perth, Australia, and it's related to the process of focus shifting, which I teach in my books. The process of releasing from a negative focus to a neutral focus versus the process of holistic release, which asks the practitioner to focus on a subject or feeling and then switch attention to its polar opposite, as opposed to something neutral. From your perspective, what are the energetic dynamics behind these differences, and do you find one practice preferable to another? And my answer to that is very specific. If you can focus on the polar opposite, good for you. But for many people, the jump from this all the way over to that is too high and too long. So I often have them shift to something neutral first before making the jump to the polar opposite. And that's the very simple answer to that question. Both is of value, but you need to see how each would feel. Often a shift to the neutral before you shift to the positive is easier. Okay? I'd actually do both. You could do a session where you shift back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the negative issue, then neutral, negative issue, then the polar opposite positive, negative issue neutral, negative issue external object, negative issue internal object, negative issue polar opposite. The goal is the same. It's to get you unstuck from the issue. And that is one method of emotional releasing, and quite a powerful one at that. The next question is from Angelica in Germany, and it's, what is synchronicity? How can it be classified? Is it a first sign of things becoming real? I classify synchronicity, that's when so-called coincidences come together, names seem to match, numbers seem to match. I personally classify it as just a sign of being in the flow, being in a good flow. It might be a sign of things manifesting your way, because when you're in the flow, it indicates that you're on the path to something good, that you're in alignment with your true energy and your true self. So in a way, the answer to that is yes. The next question comes from Faye in Wisconsin, and it's along the lines of having a small business and trouble finding clients for that small business, and how can I get more clients? After a long email. The question is fairly general, so I'll give a general answer. You get clients through the benefits you provide, as well as the perceived benefits you provide. So you got to work on providing actual benefit that discerns yourself from others, as well as perceived benefit, which is marketing. It's not enough that you do provide benefit. People also have to perceive that you provide that benefit. In general, it also needs to be perceived that you already have clients, that you're already fully booked, and you have to feel that inside, because people tend to gravitate to places and people that are already successful. That's why restaurant owners often put fake guests into their restaurants so that other guests come in. We don't feel as good coming into an empty restaurant that is apparently not going well, where the owners and waiters are apparently desperate to get customers, so desperation never works. Create the feeling and perception that you already have a lot of clients, that you're already fully booked. Create that genuine feeling within yourself and also act like it, behave like it, and also ask yourself, who would you have to be, and what would your business have to be so that clients run after you and not you running after them? Who would you have to become so that thousands of people run after you instead of you desperately trying to get them? You got to stop trying to get clients and attract them by being so ridiculously good that you're irresistible. Joshua, I don't know where you're from, but you ask, how is it possible to write as many books as you did? And my answer is enjoyment. I choose topics that I enjoy, topics I'd like to find that I can't find on the market, and then I write about them. I enjoy writing. I am a writer. So what does a writer do? He writes. An anonymous reader from Japan asks, do you think that there are aliens disguised as humans? Well, it sure seems like an appealing and interesting idea. If that were so, I'd be very fascinated by it. It's an idea that captures my fascination. I can't say for sure. I don't know for sure. But because it captures my fascination, I wouldn't rule it out. I'd stay open toward it. And in your case, since it fascinates you, why don't you research that? Why don't you look into that and become the person who finds out about it? Charlie in Hawaii asks, after 15 years of marriage, me and my wife no longer have sex. How can we rekindle our sex life? Is that even possible? I'd say, as the man, you can flow admiration, appreciation, tease, and touch. Okay, those are things you can flow toward your wife. Appreciation, admiration, tease, and touch. And your wife could change once in a while. Change her attitude, change her behavior, change her hairdo, change her clothing. So that's things the two of you could do and see what happens. An anonymous questioner asks, is it possible to contact my deceased mother? I'd say in the first or second day after death, deceased people are the closest, and that's when there's an open window, so to speak, where you might get signs or a presence, feel a presence, or an object might drop as a sign. And after that, generally only in dreams, because when they ascend or leave, their frequency, their vibration is so far away from you that contact is only viable within dreams, because in dreams your own vibration goes here, and that's when it's easier to reach you. I generally say that if your deceased mother contacts you after many years, in a physical sense at your home in waking life, be skeptical. Another anonymous questioner asks, can I attract money without working? I don't know, can you? What I do know is that the money you get is because of the benefit or the perceived benefit you provide to your fellow humans. The money you get usually comes from other humans. And if they see a benefit in giving you money, you will get money. It's as simple as that. Now, whether that entails working and how much working it entails, that's up to you to decide. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Ask Me Anything session 2017. Thank you for all the questions. Last year it took a couple of days for all the questions to come in. This year it only took a couple of hours. So that's a great improvement for me. Thank you very much. I'll see you again for Ask Me Anything in the year 2018. Bye-bye.